We will call this meeting to order at 8:31 a.m. on the 6th of October, 2020. We will start by having a chaplain prayer, which will be followed by our pledges. And we will have Mr. Jenkins, Chaplain Mr. Jenkins, come up with his wife, I believe, Marcella, to lead us in our prayer and pledges.
Good morning, everyone. Will you join with me as we pray? Precious Father in heaven, in Jesus' name, we praise you, we thank you, worship and adore you. And today is special because it's the first city council meeting where we can come in person and just fellowship one with another face to face. We thank you, Father, for all that you have done, are doing, and about to do. We continue to pray for those that have been infected with COVID-19, and we pray for their healing and deliverance. I pray, Father, that you guide the city council as they take on the agenda for today. Bless our mayor, our city council members, city department heads, and everyone that's here in this assembly. We give you and you alone all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much. We have three proclamations this morning. The first one is the proclamation of October 4th through 10th, 2020 as Fire Prevention Week. Do we have folks from our fire department here today to receive this? No, we do not. St. Angelo is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living and visiting our community. Cooking is the leading cause of home fires in the United States, where fire departments responded to more than 173,200 annually between 2013 and 2017. More than half of reported non-fatal home cooking fire injuries occurred when the victims tried to fight the fire themselves. St. Angelo residents should stay in the kitchen when frying food on the stovetop, keep a 3-foot kid-free zone around cooking areas, and keep anything that can catch fire away from stovetops. St. Angelo's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. St. Angelo's residents are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. Working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half. The 2020 Fire Prevention Week theme, Serve Up Fire, Safety in the Kitchen, effectively reminds us to stay alert and use caution when cooking to reduce the risk of kitchen fires. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim October 4th through 10th, 2020 as Fire Prevention Week, and urge all citizens to check their kitchens for fire hazards, use safe cooking practices, and support the many public safety activities and efforts of San Angelo's fire and emergency services.
Mayor, I think Brody?
Brody's back there.
Chief Brody, would you come forward? You walked in on me. Good. We got our masks on.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to speak? No, thank you. Then I'll just hand you this.
Well, thank you very much, and on behalf of the fire department, we appreciate it. And this is a very difficult time for our whole department, and typically we're out in the schools with our children and teaching our kids fire safety, but due to certain circumstances, we're not able to do that. So we're just urging our kiddos to be safe and be mindful this year.
Let me ask you, have you ever had a fire in your kitchen because you were cooking?
At the fire station, we did.
Okay,
That's
there
kind
you
of
go.
embarrassing.
See, it happens to everyone.
Good
Yeah.
answer.
So at my house, we have a cooking timer. So whenever it beeps, my wife knows that we're done cooking. Some people call it a smoke detector, but it's a cooker timer at my house.
Good. Thank you
kidding.
for that hint. We love it. Now, we're going to have a picture taken.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Oh, what should I do with this?
You can hold it like that.
Wait, I wasn't smiling on that last one.
Thank you. Our next proclamation is of World Habitat Day 2020 and Affordable Housing Day. I believe we have Pam in the audience. Please come forward. And perfect. Stephanie, come on up here. On Monday, October 5th, 2020, Habitat for Humanity of San Angelo joined with partners around the world in raising awareness, educating, and mobilizing individuals and communities to act on the current global housing crisis. Habitat for Humanity of San Angelo joins our partners to rededicate ourselves to recognizing the basic right of everyone to adequate shelter. We ask everyone to join as one global network in communicating the message that every one of us deserves the opportunity for a better future. A decent place to live can remove barriers to opportunity, health, and success for growing families now and for generations to come. Habitat for Humanity began in 1976 as a grassroots effort on a community farm in southern Georgia. The Christian Housing Organization has since become a leading global nonprofit working in more than 1,300 communities throughout the U.S. and in more than 7 countries. Families and individuals in need of a hand up partner with Habitat for Humanity to build or improve a place they can call home. Habitat homeowners help build their home alongside volunteers and pay an affordable mortgage. Everyone can help families achieve the strength, stability, and self-reliance they need to better build lives for themselves. Locally, Habitat for Humanity of San Angelo, Galilee Community Development Corporation, and the City of San Angelo stand together to help ensure we can provide affordable housing throughout our community. Through shelter, we empower. Therefore, I, Mayor Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim Monday, October 5th, 2020 as World Habitat Day 2020 and Affordable Housing Day in San Angelo, Texas, and call this observance to the attention of all our citizens.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam. Would you, Stephanie, like to speak?
I absolutely would. Just give me the mic. Listen, I just can't thank Mayor Gunter, City Council. I'm sorry. Oh, yes. I just can't, I want to thank Mayor Gunter, the City Council, Galilee Community Development Corporation, the City of San Angelo, everyone that helps with the affordable housing here in San Angelo, Texas. It's bad enough around the country, but here just in our own backyard with COVID, it's even getting worse. People are struggling every day to even pay their mortgages and their rent. So it's very important just to be mindful of these people that need a hand up and not a handout, because that's what most of these people are. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Stephanie.
Thank you. On behalf of Galilee, we would like to thank Habitat for Humanity, the city, the mayor, and the city council for the opportunity to work with them and to provide affordable housing to the community.
Our next proclamation is of Emergency Nurses Week. Do I have anyone from any organization or hospital to come forward? How are you today? Good. Thank you. And your name? Josh Davis. Nice to have you here. The nation's 90,000 emergency nurses are the first line of care in the emergency department and the first line of care for patients and families affected by COVID-19. Emergency nurses are committed to providing quality emergency care to their patients. The Emergency Nurses Association is built of nurses who continually demonstrate their professionalism and strive to upgrade standards of practice and improve patient care. They risk injury, exposure to communicable diseases, and face potentially violent situations while aiding the sick or injured. As the first line of defense, emergency nurses are often the first medical professionals to provide treatment and comfort to victims of a major disaster, frequently sacrificing time with their families to aid those in need. Outside of medical treatment and comfort, emergency nurses educate the public in the prevention and treatment of injury and illness and the proper use of emergency services. The Emergency Nurses Association celebrates its 50th anniversary this year. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim October 11th through October 17th, 2020, as Emergency Nurses Week in San Angelo, Texas, and call this observance to the attention of all of our citizens. Would you please speak?
Well, I don't have much to say. I think this proclamation really summed up what we see in the emergency departments, not just here in San Angelo, but across the state. And I just want to thank you, Mayor Gunter, and the City Council members for this proclamation.
I know we all do. Thank you very much. We will now move on to public comment. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district number, and limit their remarks to less than 3 minutes. Do I have anyone from the audience who would like to offer public comment this morning? With none, I will offer a few words this morning. Today, I once again want to thank all of the leadership in the city who have played a role in helping us combat COVID-19. From our hospital CEOs to the healthcare workers to the first responders, our schools, our county, and to Goodfellow Air Force Base, and special thanks to the city and all of the staff. It is because of all of you that we have been able to continue to find a future without COVID-19. Thank you to your staff and to the very thoughtful plans that you have executed that helped in controlling the spread of COVID-19. It is through all the leadership of San Angelo and our citizens' amazing strong West Texas character that we have not seen huge spikes in cases. On Monday, yesterday, Governor Abbott announced he would be announcing additional openings of businesses soon. The announcement was based on reduced hospitalizations, deaths, and positivity rates. Today, our positivity rate for the past 5 weeks has stayed below 10%, and our hospitalizations have continued to drop. This past week, our positivity rate was 7.7, up from last week's 6.8, but still below the 10%. We are doing more tests than we were on July 17th, and yet the positivity rate continues to stay low. This news is because you, as citizens, have continued to follow the CDC guidelines. Thank you, San Angelo, for being committed to stay the course. With that said, I know there are families who have lost loved ones, and still there are people who are suffering from the damage done by Governor Abbott's closing of businesses and restricting occupancies in those businesses. In San Angelo, we are a city of small business. We are not a city of large corporations. Lost business has meant loss of employment. Lost revenue means the potential that a business might not be able to survive. Every business deserves the opportunity to be successful. Before the pandemic, we had an unemployment rate of 3%. Today, it is over 7%. That means people, families, and businesses are suffering financially, mentally, and emotionally. We need each of you to continue to support our local business. They are the backbone of this community. Without your support, they cannot succeed. Without your support, they cannot rehire. Without your support, they cannot continue to be in business. With occupancies increased by Governor Abbott 10 days ago, we still have businesses that have not been allowed to open. Although TABC has found a path forward for bars who choose to change their license, there are those who have not been able to open their doors. All businesses deserve an opportunity to be successful. As Mayor of San Angelo, I know how important each of your businesses are. I stand behind you. I will fight for you. We want all businesses to be open and to play a part in the financial recovery of this city. Each of you as citizens play a part in our community's success in combating COVID-19. We continue to need your help, your support in making this community successful and stopping the spread. We need to be able to live our lives without fear. I continue to repeat, it is in our hands. It means taking personal responsibility. It means making a commitment to do the right thing. It takes concern and consideration for others. It takes respect of others. Your support of our business community is so important. All businesses should have the opportunity to open their doors and succeed. We truly are in this together. Together, San Angelo, we are strong. Together, we are one. Only together will we be successful. I continue to ask Governor Abbott to open the doors of our businesses. All of our businesses need an opportunity to serve the citizens of San Angelo by opening their doors. We need to let our business community continue to add to the quality of life, quality of place that exists here in San Angelo. Thank you. With that said, is there anyone who has decided that they'd like to make a public comment? With that, we will move on to the consent agenda. I will ask if there's any items that council would like to pull from the consent agenda. I will start with Billy.
No, ma'am.
Lane?
No, ma'am.
Lucy?
No, ma'am.
Harry?
C.
C, item C. Tom?
Nothing to pull.
Tommy?
Ma'am.
With that, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item C?
So moved.
Moved by Tommy, seconded by?
Second.
By Lane. Any public comment on the consent agenda? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda with the exception of item C, please say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, consent agenda with the exception of item C is passed. Item C is consider approving the purchase of EMS equipment from Zoll Medical Corporation in the amount of $624,759.71 via NPP contract M5719273 and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Patrick, you're on, and Harry, do you have a question for him?
Just want Patrick to kind of expand on the difference between the cardiac monitor defibrillators and the AEDs, and also so that the citizens understand that this is not city money, this is CARES grant money. So if you'll just say that, Patrick.
Okay, thanks for the question. Good morning, council. Good morning, Mayor, Mr. Valenzuela. Patrick Brody, Fire Department Assistant Chief. So the difference between an AED and a cardiac monitor, AED is automatic external defibrillator. It's totally hands-free, limited skill level to use them. They're required on all of our first out engines, fire trucks. They're meant to be a first responder tool to rapidly assess the patient's heart and deliver the defibrillation if needed. Cardiac monitor is much more advanced. It's for advanced cardiac life support, multitude of other functions. Those go on our ACLS ambulances. We have 13 of them. That's where the number comes from. You've seen AEDs around all over state buildings. It's meant for the layperson to be able to use them. It actually gives you directions. And most of our guys are very familiar with how to use it, so they don't need the directions, but still required equipment on a fire apparatus. Funding, it comes from the CARES grant. Funding is already available, already been awarded to our city, and we just waiting on approval to immediately move forward. And Ms. Tina Deersky, she could probably answer better on where that funding is available at.
Thank you. Harry, do you have further questions?
Now, I'll move to approve as presented.
A second by Tom. Any public comment concerning this item? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. No,
Chief, I appreciate you.
no one opposed, so the motion passes 7-0. That concludes the consent agenda, so we will now move into our regular agenda. Comments regarding items on the regular agenda may be made by the public when each item is discussed as outlined above. Applicants, proponents, and appellants are expected from the time limit above and are exempted from the time limit above and must limit their remarks to less than 5 minutes. I will ask council to remember that should you like to speak or ask a question, you need to be acknowledged first. And with that, we will go to item A. Consider ratifying COSA DC's resolution authorizing the use of sales and use tax funds in an amount not to exceed $362,500 to provide an economic development incentive to Special Materials Company, or SMC Global. And we have Shannon Scott and Michael Looney here to make a presentation. You're on, folks.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Shannon Scott, Business Retention and Expansion Coordinator for the city. So before I present the resolution for ratification, I'd actually like to give Michael Looney an opportunity to give you all kind of a background update on this company and a little bit more information. This is a very exciting expansion project, and again, I'd like to give him an opportunity to explain to y'all kind of the progression of this company and their growth here in San Angelo.
Good morning, City Council, Mayor Gunter, City Manager Valenzuela. SMC Global Corporation is been in San Angelo since 2018. And what I wanted to do is just give a little bit of background on how it came about, how this transaction was conducted, and a little bit about this company. As you can see, they are a New York City-based company. They're one of their biggest competitors is Dow Chemical. So they are a multinational, multi-commodity type corporation that makes many different chemicals for a variety of different industries. In San Angelo, they specialize in oil field chemicals, which is an obvious place to be because they're near the Permian Basin, and they import a lot of their product through the Port of Houston. So it's a very good jumping off point to the Permian from San Angelo. They also have offices in China, Switzerland as well. Hang on a minute, we're gonna get this. There we go, hold on. Sorry about that. This is a new little clicker here, but we're on the track now. As I said, they're a global manufacturer, and what happened is back in 2018, we were approached through a tip that we got from a company that knew of them and mentioned that they were a chemical company from New York that was looking for a facility somewhere in West Texas. We contacted them and hosted them in San Angelo, at which time they had toured through Houston to see if they could just do their distribution from Houston. And they also looked at facilities in Midland. And so we kind of came in on the tail end because we just met them after they had literally just gotten back from Midland. The Midland market was very compressed. It was very difficult to find property, but there were a few that were available. And they thought it might be advantageous to be as close to the wellhead as possible. What they manufacture, one of their products, which is actually manufactured in San Angelo, is a downhole chemical that is a biocide, but it's also an anti-friction agent. Companies need to use this when you're in exploration and production because it preserves the integrity of the equipment that's buried down beneath the ground. It's a very corrosive environment. So this product is not tremendously expensive, and you need to use it. You have to preserve your gear that's downhole, otherwise it will degrade very quickly. So they have a very wide customer base, which is one of the reasons why they've managed to do so well and survive and actually thrive throughout this downturn. yes, the COVID situation has created problems, but really the degradation of the West Texas Intermediate crude prices, which we saw in March of this year, caused them to be quite fearful that there might be a big contraction that could impact their business. And as I'll show you, it has not impacted it that greatly. It rebounded very quickly. They do $200 million plus a year in sales. They have 350 customers, every continent of the world, and they have a 95% retention rate, which they're very proud of. This is different than some of the mega chemical companies, because what they do is they take people with an engineering background to do their sales, so that when a company is buying product from them, they're talking to somebody who knows everything about the application of the product, as opposed to somebody who just is sent out into the field to fill orders. They do not do that, and they're very, very proud of that. And they are, as I showed you before here, they also have 4 factories. San Angelo is one of them. The other's in North Carolina, Kershaw. The other one's in Texas, which is San Angelo. Kansas City, where they make a fiberglass product, and then China. They have had consistent company growth since their founding in 1994, and they have an excellent safety record, and they're very proud to state to us that they are a CTPAT Tier 2 qualified and validated member, and they're a REACH registrant. What that means is that they have they have a great track record within the chemical industry, and that's something that they claim that a lot of their competitors can't quite make that claim about. They're a very safe company, and they run things very, very well because they're a small company and they can adjust very quickly to changes in the market and also new safety protocols, which is one of the reasons why when the COVID situation hit, they were able to react very quickly and perform their duties in a very safe manner. They were recruited by the Chamber with help from COSA DC. We partnered with our main partner, COSA DC, but also it's important to note that in one of the interviews that we had several members of industry along with us. Pitts Fabrication, Wendland Manufacturing, B&B Ventures, Randy Brooks was with us, and Hydraulic Industrial Services, a company owned and managed by a guy named Kevin Dostal. And what it did was it took them from a revelation of the city and the facilities that we had to an industry-to-industry discussion. And that completely changed the entire fabric of the whole dialogue. And really, it went on for several hours where you had industrialists speaking to other industrialists about the effectiveness of being in San Angelo, meaning you've got workforce support, you've got workforce board support, training programs, well-priced facilities, and a quick access to their markets using the Ports to Plains corridor, which is not an interstate highway, but it has interstate highway qualities. So it functions the same for their operation. In May of 2018, they opened up their first hydrolyzation facility at 3820 Cristobal Road. And then very quickly thereafter, and the Cristobal Road property was actually an abandoned property that had been occupied by Southern Shingles. And it wasn't in very good shape. It needed a lot of work. The 3862 Tractor Trail building was occupied, and it was also vacant. It was a company called Westco, which sold materials and parts to the oil field industry. So they did long-term leases at Tractor Trail and on Cristobal Road. At Cristobal, when they started off, they put over $250,000 worth of material, of facility equipment and control systems and tanks and mixing and hydrolyzation facilities into the building. If you drive by it, you wouldn't notice it, but inside of it, it is absolutely spectacular. It's a wonderful facility. Tommy's been in it. We've looked at it before, and it is amazing what they've done on the inside of it. Very, very difficult to move, very expensive to build out. When they started off, they reported to us just last week, reminded us that they had 30 tanker trucks of material leaving the Cristobal Road facility to be disseminated throughout the Permian Basin. Right now, and by mid-2019, and currently, they have around 130 tanker trucks per month taking product out to the market. And it was noted that about a quarter of their product is actually taken back down to the Port of Houston as a viable mixed chemical, and it's sold offshore, mainly to the Middle East for their oil fields. So this operation has truly got a global footprint from San Angelo. They grew very quickly, and they called us one night and said, we need 70 to 100,000 square feet for a logistics and distribution facility. There was only one property that we could find that was ready to go, that didn't need to be built, because that's a kind of a hard property to find. Even in a larger market like in Austin or in Atlanta, that can be a difficult property to find, but we did. And they worked with a real estate broker who found the old R.G. Berry facility, which is where they used to make clothing. That's in Tommy's district. And they looked at it, and it worked out to where it would be perfect because it was absolutely designed as a warehouse and distribution manufacturing facility. It has dock-high doors. It has plenty of room. Little things that you might not think about. The slab can take that kind of intense weight. That is the Cristobal Road facility. You can see it, if you had a before picture, it didn't look quite as good, but they're very proud. They have signage on the building, and they did also have to do a lot of work with AEP on getting the power supply increased. So they actually, to the right side of that picture, there's a very large ground-mounted transformer that they had to have installed. And I wanted to say publicly, AEP did an absolutely tremendous job. We worked with Fred Hernandez while he was on vacation, and he made sure that that got put to the front of the line because there was a sense of extreme urgency. They had raw materials coming up from the Port of Houston to be mixed and then sold, and so that needed to be done rapidly. That's the inside of the building. They sent us these pictures, so they're okay to publish. Those are their mixing tanks on the left, and then they use 275-gallon totes to actually transport their equipment and make their drops at the wellhead so that the crews over the wellhead can inject the chemical with their equipment when it's needed and in the right syncopation with their processes. They can't just show up and dump it down on the ground. It has to be done in a very methodical manner. This is an aerial shot of the property. This is the one on Cristobal Road. So that's their hydrolyzation and mixing facility. That's the facility that they need to expand, and you'll hear about that in a few minutes. This is the old Westco building that they inhabited that also is used for specialty products, small batch specialty products, because it's office combined with warehouse. It's a very nice little facility, and that's located again next to UPS on Tractor Trail. And that is what they did to the inside of it. The inside of it was not in very good condition. They completely transformed it to their corporate offices, and they're very proud of the work that they've done. They have a staff of 17 people in San Angelo, local hires, and I should also add that they did not let go of anybody during the COVID crisis. That is a aerial shot of the Tractor Trail facility. You can see UPS is in the foreground. Again, then they moved on and they continued to expand. So now we're up to 3 facilities. 2801 West Loop 306, the former R.G. Berry building. They took every square foot that was available, 80,000 square feet total. Good thing about that building is that it was available, but the building had been vacant for many, many years. We think, based on documentations that we were able to find, is that it had been vacant since 1994 and was not being used really for anything. But it was purpose-built for manufacturing, and it was ideal for what they wanted to do. So it was a brownfield building that was put back in service. So now we've got 3 facilities in San Angelo that have now been put back in service. That's an interior shot. It's a vast, vast property. The building couldn't be converted to any kind of a retail use because there's very limited parking there. In fact, you may know that there was a gym there, and the Council of Governments has about a 12,000-foot office on the front side of that facility, and that's the back side that faces to the south. And you can see those dock-high roll-up doors are perfect for what they do. And that is an aerial shot of the property, and they ingress off of Loop 306 and then use it for the same egress as well. This just shows the reach of their 3 facilities, and this is how they communicate. They are always on the move, moving product from one space to another, and then for final distribution to their customers, mostly in the Permian, but as I said, some makes it back down the highway to Houston, to the Port of Houston. They have 17 employees. They pay very competitive salaries. And most of their employees, almost all of them, except for 2, are from San Angelo. Their employees are very loyal to the company, and the company is very loyal to them and assured them that during the COVID crisis, they would do everything to make sure that everybody stayed on salary and that they would not be furloughed, and they stuck by that promise. And those are the kind of companies that we like. Sometimes companies are backed into a corner and they just don't have any choice. This company is a little bit different. And they do have, as I said, a very strong esprit de corps, and they do have continued growth plans in San Angelo. So that's just a little bit about the company. There's a picture of one of the events that they hosted. And again, they're a very loyal company to San Angelo. They want to grow. In this day and age, companies are recruited by many, many cities, and they could probably grow in a lot of places, but they've made their commitment to our city. And so what we're going to do is Shannon's going to come up and is going to talk to us about the resolution for the expansion of their hydrolyzation and mixing facility. If you have any other questions, I've been working with them since 2018. We know them very well. We're on a friends first name basis with the company leadership. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does anyone on council have a question for Michael at this point? All right, Shannon, come on up.
Come on up, Shannon.
Thank you, Michael. So again, as Michael stated, they are a specialty chemical supplier with global sourcing and production facilities, and some of their products include green solvents, phosphorus derivatives, and color imaging chemicals. So their expansion plans will include the purchase of the building that they're currently leasing at 3820 Christoval Road, additional improvements and upgrades to that facility, as well as the purchase of adjacent property that is currently vacant. And as Michael stated, this is in Councilman Hebert's district. Again, as Michael stated, they do currently have 17 full-time employees, which they do anticipate retaining. They also anticipate hiring up to 5 additional employees within the next 3 years, with those employees having an average salary of $60,000. So with the expansion for the purchase of the building at Christoval Road that they are currently leasing, as well as improvements to that facility, and then the purchase of the adjacent property, they're anticipating expending up to $3 million in capital investment. And as we stated, this will be their 4th expansion in San Angelo since 2017? Is that correct?
What's that?
This will be their 4th expansion since 2017?
That's correct.
Okay. So pretty impressive growth in the last 3 years. So the breakdown of incentives that we're proposing would be a $350,000 capital investment grant once the $3 million has been expended, again, for the purchase of the building at Christoval Roads, improvements to that building, and the purchase of the adjacent property, which used to be the former Patterson drilling property. Again, we're asking that they retain the 17 current employees, and we're offering $2,500 per full-time equivalent for up to the 5 additional employees. So the total incentives package that we're proposing is $362,500. Finally, with every business retention and expansion project that we propose, we do run an economic impact analysis to determine the return on investment. And in this particular case, we are anticipating $2 million in annual economic output, $1.3 million in gross area product annually, and then a payback period of 5.5 years. So I would be happy to answer any questions, and I'm sure Michael would be as well.
Do I have questions from council at this point? Okay, then I would take a motion to approve.
Mayor, I would make a motion that we ratify this resolution passed by COSA DC.
I'll second.
A second by Lane. All of those, and anybody in the audience who would like to make public comment on this item? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item B. Consider ratifying COSA DC's resolution authorizing the use of sales and use tax funds in an amount not to exceed $150,000 to provide an economic development incentive to BP Surface Solutions, LLC, DBA, a Dorado Construction Group. And Shannon, you're on again.
Thank you. As Mayor Gunner stated, this, again, is another ratification of a resolution for Dorado Construction Group. So what they do is they provide end-to-end and specialized civil engineering services, as well as construction services for the oilfield infrastructure. And they're actually going to start branching out and doing more municipal government-related projects. So along with the oilfield infrastructure and engineering services they provide, they're starting to diversify. So that's good news. Their expansion project will include the purchase of a new building that's going to be located at 424 South Chadburn, as well as new furnitures, fixtures, and equipment to outfit that building. And this is going to be in Councilman Harry Thomas's district. So currently, they have 93 full-time employees. They do anticipate hiring up to 25 additional employees within the next 3 years, with those employees having an average salary of $70,000. So their expansion plans include $2.7 million, again, for the purchase of that facility off of Chadburn Street, as well as the new furnitures, fixtures, and equipment.
Shannon,
Yes, ma'am.
it says 93 employees. That building wouldn't seem to hold 93 employees.
So they actually do have another facility. It's located, I believe it's 4705 South Chadburn. So that's where they house most of their employees. This would actually be their corporate office. So the bulk of their employees are actually at that other facility. So this would be an additional facility. Okay, and the breakdown of incentives for this particular project would include a $100,000 capital investment grant. Again, once that $2.7 million has been expended for the purchase of the building, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. We are asking that they retain their 93 current employees, and we're offering up to $2,000 per full-time equivalent for up to the 25 FTEs. So the total incentives package that we're proposing is $150,000.
What's the time frame, if you'll go back, what is the time frame on the hiring of the 25?
It would have to be within the next 3 years.
Thank you.
Again, in this particular instance, the economic impact includes $9 million in annual economic output, as well as $4.9 million in gross annual product, and a payback period of 6.2 years. And I'd be happy to answer any additional questions.
Do I have questions from council on this item?
Mayor,
Ma-
I have
yes,
a
Billy.
question. Shannon, how do you determine the payback period?
So that takes into consideration, again, many factors, such as the number of employees that they have, the average salaries. It takes into a lot of different factors. And what we try to do, basically, it's the amount of incentives that we're proposing, as opposed to, again, how that reflects what the number of employees that they're going to hire, that they're going to retain, the salaries. It takes a lot of those things into consideration. And what we try to do is really keep that around 5 years, but under 10 years. So anything under 10, we determine as a good return on our investment. Anything over that, we try to work the numbers so that we can stay under that 10 years, but closer to the 5 years.
Okay. And the reason I asked was because SMC that we gave a large amount of funding had a lesser time payback period than Dorado
Correct.
did.
And
So-
I think with that one, the risk is probably a little bit lower as far as the number of employees that they have to retain, as well as how many they're expected to hire. In this particular case, I guess it could be so-called classified as riskier to maintain 93 employees and then hire 25 additional employees. So it kind of weighs out the risk versus reward, if that makes sense.
Well, I would think as they're refocusing on their business model, meaning they used to be very much focused on the oil and gas industry and now trying to develop a relationship in the municipality business, you're not talking apples to apples, you're now reaching for a new market. So I would assume there's a little more risk with trying to attract a new market.
Correct.
Or maybe there's more risk by staying only in the oil and gas industry. You could look at it either way.
Correct. And it does take into consideration the type of industry that we're using, so.
Billy, further questions?
No, that was it. Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes, Lucy?
I just wanted to ask, these 93 employees that we show that they have now, did they come with the company, or are they people that are employed from here, from San Angelo?
So these are currently employees here in San Angelo. And I think what's important to note is we began negotiations with Dorado back in January. And at that time, they had around 101 employees. So they've only lost 4 in the past 8 months, essentially, which is very impressive considering the factors. But like I said, with the new diversification of what they're trying to do to get into the municipal side, they anticipate hiring, the need to hire those 25 additional employees in order to fulfill that commitment. But these are local, already existing employees here in San Angelo.
Any further questions? Harry, would you like to make a motion?
I would make the motion that we move to approve as presented. I think this is a good opportunity for the city.
And do I have a second? A second by Lucy. Any public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to item C. Consider ratifying a real estate sales contract and economic and development performance agreement as approved in a resolution by the COSA DC Board of Directors on August 12, 2020, and amended by City Council on August 18, 2020, in a motion to ratify the resolution approved by COSA DC authorizing the negotiation and execution of a real estate contract with Wisner Holdings, LLC, doing business as South Plains Lamesa Railroad, and negotiation of a real estate development performance agreement for the developing, marketing, and operation of an industrial transloading facility with an amendment authorizing the board president to negotiate the real estate contract in conjunction with the executive director of the Development Corporation, the city manager, the city attorney, and the COSA DC attorney. And Guy Andrews, you're on.
Hey, thank you. Guy Andrews, Director of Economic Development with the City of San Angelo Development Corporation. Thank you, Mayor, City Council, Mr. Valenzuela. This is an exciting day, as you can well see, for economic development. In our consent agenda, we approved an item that will help us complete our expansion of our industrial park that will open up an additional 93 acres. In that industrial park, you can see that our BREP program, Business Retention Expansion Program, is thriving with a couple of items. This is a very exciting project for us. We view this as a game changer for San Angelo. We've been working on this project for nearly 2 years. It began as actually the Chamber of Commerce identified a need to provide a multimodal transloading facility for our local clients. And then we began to work towards that, looked at identifying a site. Back almost 2 years ago, our consultant Roger Horton with Shea Transportation, Michael Looney, Michael Dane, and myself and Bob Schneeman drove this entire line looking for a potential place to house this facility. We actually identified a couple of sites. One of them was a smaller site over close to Windland Tank. And then we also identified a 180-acre site that we'll be talking about in this contract, which is just north of the Texas Pacifico classification yard. Ideal location for this particular facility. As you'll recall, last year we spent the entire year and came to close on purchasing that facility. Now, as our consultants in the project, we worked very hard with the Chamber, and again, I will single out Michael Looney and Roger Horton's extremely hard work in identifying that we had potential demand for such a facility. And the other thing we asked them to do, which was our ideal, would be to find somebody that could actually own and operate this facility as a public-private partnership. And thanks to their diligence, we found such a partner, and so this brings us to what we're wanting to ratify today in regard of the sales of that property to potential or to our owner-operator for that facility. pushing the wrong one there.
Good news is that today is October the 6th, 2020, and we are at the city council meeting.
We are. And I may be,
Just as a reminder.
oh, there we go. Okay. You will recall that the City of San Angelo Development Corporation Board of Directors approved a resolution back on August the 12th. That was amended by City Council on August the 18th in ratifying it and what they asked for to protect the city's interest in this particular facility, that not only the Development Corporation be involved in those negotiations, but we would have a city manager designee, which was Michael Dane in this case. We involved our city attorney, Teresa James, and also our Costa DC attorney, Dan Soluri, in those negotiations. So both the real estate sales contract and development performance agreement were negotiated as required by the amended resolution. Again, they're the people that were represented in there. And in addition to that, we also developed the real estate lien deferred payment note, deed of trust, and special warranty deed that are necessary for closing. The sales contract that we're asking to ratify is for $600,000 at 0% interest for 6 years. These payments are forgivable as long as the terms of the performance agreement are being met. So as long as they're performing, they have the ability to have those payments forgiven, and at the end of 6 years to actually own that facility. The closing date actually has already been set for this project pending approval for October the 15th, so next week. The main provisions of our performance agreement with them is that they will initially invest $1 million to build out the initial facility. They'll actually have be sharing employees. They own a facility in Slayton, Texas, and share facilities and locomotives with that facility. But they will have 2 full-time employees by 2023. They have to reach agreement with the Texas Pacifico on the rates and services, which they've done. They have to adhere to the local, state, and federal regulations. They will consent to voluntary annexation at the end of this agreement. They must continue to be maintained as a functional transload facility. They need to have local contractors and supplies preferences to do business locally with those folks as much as possible. And very importantly, that they will have at least quarterly meetings between us, the Chamber of Commerce, to make sure that everything is on track in this. This is a partnership. There are lots of moving parts to this, but it's a great partnership and a great example of a public-private partnership. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have in regard to this.
Do I have questions from council? If none, may I have a motion for approval?
So moved, Mayor.
A move by Tommy, second, but was that Harry or Tom? Harry, okay. Any public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guy.
Yeah, it kind of reminds us of, you were always early on talking about planes, trains, and automobiles. So it looked like we had the planes, we have the automobiles, and now we're getting the trains.
We're hitting all three on high gear, and this has been hugely important for us, not only for potential recruitment of companies going forward, but to support all the local businesses, whether they're agricultural, oil and gas related, or any other thing. So this has been a long time coming and a big point in my economic development strategy for the city, so I'm excited.
And I'd just like to say a thank you to everybody that participated in this, because this is an exciting opportunity for San Angelo. So Guy and Michael and Teresa and all of those that are not here, thank you.
Thank you, Billy. All right, we'll move on to item D, and item D is as follows. Consider accepting an annexation petition for 88.936 acres of land out of Track 2 and Track 3, Block 1, Section 1, Tom Green County Business Park, Tom Green County, Texas, generally located east of U.S. Highway 67 and 277 and north of Tractor Trail, and setting a public hearing on the annexation for the November 17th, 2020 City Council meeting. John, you're on.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. There are a few of these annexations that were on consent. Oh, that was the one I needed. So as you may recall, the area of the county jail was disannexed about 4 years ago. And part of that disannexation included an agreement for them to re-annex at some point in the future. You may recall that this was related to a grant that they wanted to get that required them to be outside of the city limits. And so, as you may know, they did not get that grant. And so now they are asking to have the jail facility re-annexed into the city. You may also recall the disannexation included an area larger than what they're asking for re-annexation. And so, at this point, that area may be annexed again at some point in the future, but at this point, they're just wanting to re-annex what's there in orange on the map.
You want to talk why they're asking for annexation?
Well, again, they really didn't have any desire necessarily to be outside the city limits. As a county organization, they don't pay city taxes anyway, so it's not a tax issue. They are interested in receiving the full range of city services like fire and police and all of that, which they don't necessarily get being outside the city limits. And again, the only reason they requested disannexation in the first place was to pursue that grant opportunity. And so now it's come to the point that the County Commissioners Court has voted to seek re-annexation, which is why they've petitioned the City Council. And again, I want to remind you, today is simply accepting that petition and starting the ball rolling on the required statutory process. You're not annexing anything today. You can see there we have a schedule laid out where we'll have public hearings in November and December. Between now and then, there are some steps we have to take, including some notifications and some publications in the newspaper and those sorts of things. But this is simply accepting their petition to begin that process.
So does the city experience any additional costs, either in the process or ultimately in the annexation, in terms of expenses that would happen because of the annexation?
Well, part of the way I'll answer that question is we do a service plan analysis throughout this process. So when we come back in November, we'll have a more detailed answer for that. I think the short answer is not a lot, because per the agreement we had with the county when they disannexed, many of the same services and requirements, city ordinances and those sorts of things still apply to the area under that interlocal agreement. And so, for example, sewer and water service are still provided. And so I don't think the cost burden to the city would be the same as it would be if we were talking about annexing, potential commercial property. But the longer answer is we'll come back to you with more detailed information on that once we come back with the annexation.
Do I have questions from council? Tom? Nope. All right, so then I need a motion to accept the annexation petition.
Move to approve.
By Lane, and a second by Tommy. Any public comment? There's no public comment. Yes, there is a public comment. Hold on. We've got, I'm seeing him. Rick Bacon. I see him. I got eyes.
Even the mask.
Even with the mask, I got eyes.
Sorry, we just finished court, so appreciate, but just wanted to make a comment. Thank y'all. Appreciate y'all taking the consideration and helping us with this. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Rick. All right, with that, we will take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes 7-0. We'll move on to the last item on the regular agenda, which is item E. First public hearing and introduction of an ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2020, and ending September 30th, 2021 for grants and reimbursed expenses. Tina?
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Council, Mr. Valenzuela. Tina Deersky, Director of Finance, and I don't know how to use this, apparently. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I have a budget amendment for you today. We had a number of grants come up, opportunities for the city to receive money at the state or federal levels. So this first one is to finish receiving the CRF grant monies from the federal government through the state, TDM. It's the remainder of the CRF monies that amounted to just over $5 million. We've already budgeted for $1 million of that, and we're bringing to you the rest of it so that we can get that used for good purposes for city expenditures. The second one is for a police grant that they're able to use for just any type of police department expenditures, and they are transferring part of that to the county. Third one is for the airport, a grant that they're receiving to help reimburse for law enforcement expenses, $47,000. These next two are for neighborhood and family services. They are receiving, again, more CRF funding from the government, $180,000 in this first one for rapid rehousing projects, and $582,000 in the second one. And Bob Salas, Director of Neighborhood and Family Services, has indicated that he will be bringing back a plan to council once he has more information on how he's able to use those funds. Next is our charity care reimbursement that we receive for the Medicaid reimbursement, is what it was called previously. And we are requesting to use those funds this year to help with the peak hours ambulance for the contract services that are affiliated with that peak, with the charity care reimbursement. And then fire department's requesting to use the remainder for the purchase of a new ambulance. And I think that finishes that.
So that totals out $4 million plus that you just went through?
The very first amendment was $4 million. And that was.
So what you went through, the individual slides totals the 4.3?
No, ma'am. Each of these amendments is in addition to that $4 million.
Okay, so do we have any plans for the $4 million? Because isn't there a time frame that we have to use that by?
Yes, ma'am. December 30th is the deadline for that. And so actually, we just received an email late last week from TDM, which is the state level that it's transferred through to the cities. And they are requesting a plan for that. And so I have a meeting set up this afternoon with my staff to get together a plan so that we can present it to city manager and get some direction and feedback from him.
So we just have to present a plan. We don't have to have the money spent by December, or do we have to have it spent?
We do for right now, yes, we have to have it spent by December 30th. The state is requesting the federal government to extend that deadline, and we would hope that the state would follow suit with us if that were to happen, but so far it hasn't, so.
Any further questions for Tina? With none, do I have a motion to approve the ordinance amending the budget for the fiscal year October 1, 2020?
So moved, Mayor.
A motion by Billy. May I have a second? A second by Lucy. Any public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes 7-0. There will be no closed session, so we will move into item 8, follow-up and administrative issues, with item B, consideration of approving various board nominations. Keep San Angelo Beautiful Neil Townley, SMD 1, to a second term ending September 2022. May I have a motion? A move by, and seconded by Billy. I think, was that Billy? Lane. Any public comment? With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving item A, B, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes. Any announcements or consideration for future agenda items by council? With none, we'll ask for a motion for adjournment.
Move we adjourn, Mayor.
Motion by Tom, seconded by Tom. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
City council meeting of 10/6/2020 is now complete.